All right. Good evening, everyone. Yeah. So, based on what we have done during the week, how many people were able to exploit even at least if it is two system? I think I gave everybody five um things to be able to exploit. Hello.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
So, yeah. How many did white code, which is Mr. Dayo, how many did you exploit? How many did we all exploit or we were able to exploit on
I was able to
Wednesday?
exploit a lot, but some of them were like, if I did to a point, when I run, it will show, maybe one will show red, like maybe something fail, like loading, all those things. So I will keep trying other ones. And sometimes light is my problem sometimes. So, but one thing I just need to get that right exploit. That's just the. But sometimes if I get the exact port, then it won't bring the L host and L port. I'll just get the exact port, then I input the R host. So in that case, which um, listening host and port can I use in that case? Or if it happens like that, it is invalid.
Well, I will only say this that the idea of metasploit is one of the greatest things you would actually learn in cybersecurity because it's very important as far as penetration testing is concerned. I would say that most especially, I want you to just understand the process first. And when you understand the process, other things are not going to be difficult at all. Number one, L hosts, you need to be able to create. Most times, the reason why you are not successful in your exploitation is basically because you are supposed to create an L host for yourself. All these L hosts that we have been creating or that you are putting like 10.0.0.1 is mostly the same L host with my system, is mostly the same L host with your system. And so it's not going to give you, sometimes the internet gets confused. I We are supposed to learn how to create our own L host. That means we are to create an IP that is close to the IP of our Windows. We are supposed to be able to create an IP of our own so that when the system wants to reverse back and give us the information of what we are exploiting, it will be sending it directly to us, not that it's going to be sending the information to random people.
Exactly.
Please give me a few minutes, few seconds, not minutes. I don't need minutes. So, and as I was saying, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, so as I was saying, so you need to know the right payload. Before you exploit a system, there should be a payload to the system. And that payload to your a payload to your exploit. Now, the payload to your exploit can determine if your exploit is actually going to work, even if the system is protected, because there are a lot of systems that are not very protected. And when you scan in an organization or you scan a network and you are able to see a phone or you are seeing some devices there, you can also exploit those devices, maybe Android, whatever phone, and the rest of it. And you should be able to gather information there. So I'll be giving a few examples of how we can start with the payload. I just wanted to be sure that we all have the understanding of how to actually exploit a system or a vulnerable system. So with that being said, uh, I'm actually updating my system. Let me look at this particular IP from,
Sorry, boss.
let me share.
Yeah, good evening,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah, good day.
Yeah,
Hello,
before
Mr.
you go,
George.
yes, sir.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Before you go to the next, I still have challenge with this exploitation. Uh, Actually, I
Mm.
tried severally, but where I hooked up was, the IP to use for that is for the remote host. How to get the IP for remote host? Is it that I'm supposed to get the IP for the remote host, scan it, and then before exploiting it, then after exploiting it, now it comes to my own to the local IP address now. That's where I keep hooking up severally. So the thing just mix up for me like that, and I don't know really where I'm really getting it wrong. So if you can help, sir, the steps, just maybe theoretically, just give us
Now,
something like that, so that, yeah.
okay, I will start by asking certain questions, and those questions will determine what you are actually talking about. Now, first of all, do you think that when you were trying to make the exploits, do you think that you first of all look at the operating system of that particular device you are going after? Network seems very bad. Oh. Can anybody answer?
I can hear you. I can hear
Because
So we
you.
can hear you. And
okay, that means
his question
Yeah, the operating systems and the
that
version.
you understand the operating system and the version, which
Yes, sir.
is, for example, okay, for example, that means you search for the after the IP, you search for the operating system, right? You search for the version of the system. You first search for the IP address of the system, right, Mr. George? Because the reason why I'm asking this question is this: if you are not looking the right operating system of if you're not looking at the right operating system, maybe I think I would show you something that I've probably not talked about. Let me show you something. Maybe you're going to have a little bit of understanding. Now, let us say MSF Venom. We haven't touched on this before, but I will just go here for example. Is everybody here?
we're here, sir.
All right. Let's say, oh, am I sharing my screen? I don't think so.
No, you only show you
Okay.
your video.
Okay. Now, there is a part of metasploit that we call MSF Venom. And MSF Venom is what you can use to create your own personal kind of payload to attack a system in the way you want it to attack the system. You can decide if you want to attack HTTPS, whatever. But let's say, for example, let us look at some things here, what Metasploit can do and how you can use it to attack. Let's say MSF Venom, let's say slash L. What's wrong with this, my system? MSF Venom. let's say /L, and let's use platforms. So this might help us to kind of understand some things. All right. Now, when you look at this particular place, this particular one tells you, I'm just showing you little things. If you want to attack a system with Windows, you must create a payload that is for Windows. If you want to attack a system that has Python, that is using a Python programming, you must use a program with Python. If you want to attack a website with PHP, you must use a PHP file to attack it. This is how you can create. You can attack a system with JavaScript. You can attack a system with Linux. You can attack an Android phone. And an Android phone is any file that you create, and you create the file as APK. Anyone that is on Windows, you create it as .exe. So if you want to attack a system that has Firefox, this is what you use. If you want to attack an iPhone, this is what you use. So you must understand that if you are creating a payload, you can decide, did I want to attack a Windows system? You must be sure if it is a Windows system you want to attack, if it is a Solaris, if it is a Ruby, if it is a Python, if it is OS X, if it is Notch, if it is netware, a system that has netware. And then when we talk about MSF, Venom /L, let's say payloads, just the payloads that we actually have that most of us have not even seen. Let me just give us the amount of payloads we have. And I know why we are thinking maybe payload when we open metasploits. We mostly don't understand that we have more payloads than any other thing. Why is this one taking forever? Sorry, I'm updating my system at the background. Hmm. All right. So if I would pick it up because I can't finish scrolling, but if I think to scroll, you can see that these particular ones is just for Windows. This particular payload, you can use any of this payload. If you want to attack a system with Windows, these are the ones you use. We have Windows reverse shell, we have Windows PowerShell, we have all these things. These are just for Windows. Let me not take the whole day because to scroll it is much. If you, this is just still Windows. Now, if you want to go for the one of Solaris, if you want to go for Ruby, if you want to go for Python, if you want to go for a website, PHP website, if you want to go for only Linux, a system that is Linux, that they have operating system of Linux, these are the payload you would use. A system, if you want to attack a command line of the system, that is CMD, this is on Windows. This is it. If you want to do command line SMD, it is there. If you want to attack this is still Linux. If you want to attack an Android phone, these are the payloads that are there for Android phone. For Apple phone, iOS, this is it. For Mac OS is also part of it. So what I'm trying to put as, if you can get the picture, is that if you use a Windows operating system in any way, or a Windows payload to attack um, a system with Linux, it cannot be effective. If you use probably a payload from Android, which is APK, and you put it on iPhone, you would see that it would not be able to function. So your idea is, even if you want to create a payload, you must create a payload that is meant for that particular application. So when you are doing your exploit, if any of your exploits does not carry the version and the operating system of that particular IP address, that you know the IP address that you're actually going for, you are still going to make mistakes. You are not going to get exactly what you are looking for. You cannot exploit such a system. The main way to exploit a system is through the payload, not really the exploits. I just wanted you guys to deliberately make mistake so that you will know how to use the exploit when you can actually create the payload. Because once you create the payload and you create encoder, the exploit is the finishing line and the finishing touch of it. So that means if you can create a payload and then you create encoder is to make sure that that particular application cannot get tracked by firewall or cannot get tracked by or by antivirus. So maybe you put the old antivirus there, because sometimes the reason, even if you get the right exploits, you cannot penetrate because of some of them as firewall, antivirus, or NAT. NAT is they might have a good security around NAT that might bounce your stuff back. But all these things are mostly important if you know them, the foundation that anything I am gathering information on, it must be in line with the payload I am about to create. Because if you are not doing that at the end of the day, you are still going to fail. So, Mr. George, I would say that if you are going after any system and you have not been able to exploit 5 systems between Friday and today, it is basically because there's something that you are missing. And mostly, if it is not the operating system along the line, it is mostly it's going to be the version, or it's going to be um,
Oh,
operating system or version. Those are mostly the two things that you might be having challenges with.
uh, hello, sir.
Yeah.
I think maybe I don't know if I can add something, sir. There is something I
All
understood
right.
from his question when he's talking about
Mm.
what to use as a L host and what to scan. I think is where he missed it. It's like he did not know that what you are using as a listening or maybe L host local listening port, for example, the L host, he didn't know that is the same IP address eh, or remove
That is in
the
Scali.
R host. Sorry, R host. He didn't know that the L host is his own IP address, the IP address of his system.
Okay.
I think that is where he's getting it. Otherwise, if he knows, he wouldn't be finding it difficult to say he don't know what is the R host and what is the L host. I think that is where he did not
Okay.
get clear.
O- Okay. R host simply means the target IP address, the system you are targeting. That is the R host. L host means your own particular system that you are using. Normally, even if we create L host with what we are doing, we are not yet there. And that's the reason why I say we take it slowly. Even if you are using your own particular IP address that is on your system, which is, um, for example, if I say IP A and it's showing this IP address 127.0.0.1, that shouldn't be the IP address. The IP address is supposed to be 192.168.1.251 for you to be able to only receive the IP address. Because if some of you, I know some people's system is showing 10.0.0.15 or 10.0.0.1, If your L host is also in the same place, your target system might be reversing back to somebody else's system, maybe not your own. So you'll be having challenges. You are to create your own L host. That's your listening host for your own Kali that will make you have the information to yourself and nobody else. I know Mr. Dayo has actually asked questions like this. I just decided to play along and just like I want you guys to go through these difficulties first so that you can raise a lot of questions around it. So your listening host, most times you can apply your system to it. If you apply your system, you might see 10 point, like maybe you are using 10.0.0.1. You might see in Wireshark, when you put on your Wireshark, if it is TCP you are using, you will start receiving signal under Wireshark. You'll be receiving the signal, but that signal you are actually receiving does not mean that it can give you all the information. There can be errors around if there's any network also that is using the same thing. So our host is that particular target IP address. L host means the listening port or the listening host, the one that is listening to the other R host is your own IP address in your Kali. So we are not yet there to learn how to create our own IP address so that every information from there will be coming to our own system. So and which that is what part of our job to do. So let's proceed. Um, I don't know if Mr. George have been able to clarify some of your stuff because I know probably you might need a little bit of practicals. No, not MSF Venom. This is sudo MSF console. I want us to really touch on payloads today. Um, 1, 2, 3. Now, while this thing is loading, let me look for my IP here. Let's say ifconfig. Okay. Where is this my system IP again? Oh, let me just open Wireshark. Windows PowerShell. PowerShell.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
I don't know why is it that Nmap doesn't like to scan where that like that command you are using now, the Nmap hyphen or dash a dash o. It doesn't like to scan it, or does it mean that it's my own that is doing that?
Probably it's your network. If your network is probably slow. Let's say I scan my system now, or many people are not around. My TV is not on in my parlor or neither in my room. 192.168.1.176, for example. Um, there's an issue with my network here. The moment it's showing host up, you need to sometimes the one of these challenges you might have while you are using this is sometimes you need to be sure it is working.
Uh, it doesn't like to work
Yes.
for me. This is so.
For me, as it shows this, I need to test the browser to see if it's browsing. That is one
Okay.
way you can know that, okay, is it browsing or not? So let me open this. Let me just say facebook.com. Facebook.com. Maybe the network is slow. All right. Since this one is going 192.168.1.176. Dot 176. Let's go again. Let me close it. Oh, 192.168.1.176. Okay.
What are you doing?
It
You want
tells
to go
us
tell it?
that
I don't tell you. You tell
004.
it.
So first thing, let me just add /24. Where's my phone?
Hello. Is it only me that could not hear?
Hello.
Hey,
Okay.
man of thought, are you there? Can't hear you.
Yeah, the network is so bad here.
Yeah, sorry, no man never light. I just switch to inverter.
Is that person knocking here? Yeah, it is. Good evening, bro. Good evening, no. Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Ecotech should off his mic. All right. For those of us that are here, um, let's continue. Now, out of the scan that I make, I think there are not much phone and devices at home. So I had to change the um, scan that I used. And the scan I used is kind of a little bit different. And because it is different, now it reports that the host is actually on. And it tells us three hosts. That means there are three devices that are on, one laptop, one phone, and the system itself. So after the whole scan, what we are able to see, I believe everybody can hear me. So the IP address I used is, I can see this particular one. This one says that Ubiquiti key, and Ubiquiti is more or less like a phone device. The other one is TP-Link, which shows Linux. And this other one is Microsoft Windows system. So when you scan a system and you see something like um, Ubiquiti, Ubiquiti network, it is telling you that it is probably an Android phone. Source country US, algorithm, blah, 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 and the rest. So these are like MD5. It makes the mark a little bit different from from this. But on this one, you see that the operating system is Linux. And the other one, you see that the operating system is, where is it? The operating system is Windows 10 to Windows 11, and the Microsoft Windows Server is around 2019 that it is being created. So now you can test and create your own type of payload and add it to your exploits. But before we go into payload, let us have a little discussion on payload, which is, I think I've opened it already. Okay. Why are these things in my room like this? Did they get in here? Please, can you hear me? It seems
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
We can
okay.
hear you,
Okay.
sir.
Yeah, this one. Okay. Now, if we open metasploit and we decide to use this same IP address that is open 192.168.1, I want you to also know that you can decide to go through this particular device, which is the phone device. This is for Linux. This is Kali. You can decide to go for Kali, which you have seen the ports that are open. Or you can go for the Windows. But it is not advised to go for Windows mostly because the operating system of the Windows is the one that is hosting it. And depending until we understand how payload actually work before we can decide what to do with it. Now, let's say we want to go after a particular part of this network. Let me look at the one we are going for. No, but the system, the desktop, one of the desktop is showing 192.168.1.50. The Kali Linux has its own IP, which is 192.168.1.2. The phone device has 192.168.1.1. So we are going to first of all work on this IP address, and we see that it has all these devices in it. So that means if it has Windows in it, that means Windows is definitely the host of all the phone and the rest of it. So we have to look for ports that are open. One of the ports that are open is 135. One of the ports that is open is 22 TCP. 445 is not open. It just show you that's for Microsoft themselves. 3389 is kind of open terminal services and NetBIOS. So for us to go with this, that means we are using search, exploits, Windows, RPC. If it is Linux that we want to go for, if it is the Kali Linux we want to go for, this is for Windows, we would have used exploit, search exploit, Linux, and see the port that is open, which is drop beer SSHD. And then we will now put this IP address, this particular IP address here, that hosts, that is the major host that is hosting all the device here. I don't know if you are getting it. Now, that means you are attacking what that particular device that is inside this IP. Get water. I believe you guys are listening to what I'm saying. Now, if you want to attack the Linux inside this particular IP address, what you will do is you will now look for if it has open ports. Because it has open ports, drop their version SSHD, you would not go for search exploit Windows. You will search search exploit Linux SSHD. Sorry, we will still use another one. Search Linux. Oh, sorry, exploits Linux SSH. Now that means in our exploitation, we can see that it is excellent. In our exploitation, the port in this one that is actually open, SSH, blah, 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 SSH, cyber infra. This is cyber infrastructure, default password remote code. This is alien remote code execution, Cisco. We don't need Cisco. Linux trace root exploit. Okay, so let's say we go for this. And then we would have to check if it is aligned with that port, which is 8. Number is port, so we just say use 8, or we can decide to paste. Now, you would see that this particular one come with its own configured payload, and the payload that come with this one is a Linux payload. It is not a Windows payload because I'm attacking. So the only thing to do is to do options to be sure that that port is available. Now, if the port is not available, that means there's a different one that is hosting it, which we need to find the right one. Let's use 9. Let's say use 9. Use 9. Let me be sure. Use 9. Yes, we are using 9. And now we say options also. It shows that the port that is available on this one is 32022, which is the port in this particular one is port 22. So that means it is not the right one. Let's say use 17. And then we use options. This is port 80. Let's see if there's port 80 that is open on this system. Okay, now there's port 80 TCP that is open on this. The version is TP-Link HTTP. Let's still look at it to confirm, to know if we can go with this. Options. It shows only listening also. This is server. Okay, it shows port 80. So that means that this one is to work with, because the port here is open, even though we know the version is SSHD, but as long as we have seen that it is port 80, we can now use this port 80 as far as the port is open in our scan, and it is a Linux device, even though the version we search here is SSHD. But if SSHD does not work or is not being found, it can provide us with another port that is open along SSHD. So if port 80 is open along SSHD and it is Linux, you can see now that the exploit is Linux HTTP, which is port 80. God help. Which is port 80. Now, we are now to put in the R host, and the R host is set R host, which is the IP address 192.168.1.176. Then we say options. Now we need to know the IP address of this particular system. The IP address of this system is 192.168.1.251. Set L host, which is the one that will be listening to it. Set L host, Control Shift V, and then we say enter. Options just to verify. And then the right thing to do is to set a payload. To set a payload before you even exploit. Or say, sorry, show payloads. That's the payloads that are equipped for this particular one is what we are looking for. Now it would only show us payload that can work around this particular one. And if the payload is not available, then that means we are to create our own payload that can work for what we want. And that is where MSF Venom comes in. Because if you look at most of these payload, these are command payloads. These are Python interpreter payload. These are payload command for reverse TCP, all these ones Ruby, reverse TCP payload generate shell underscore reverse TCP. That means there is no payload on this system that belongs to this particular application. So the best thing to do is for us to create MSF Venom, and we want to start creating our own payload. Because even if I use payload, even if I exploit, any of all these payload I use here does not match with this. So it would only show me exploits. I would only exploit to see the vulnerability of the system, which if I press run, as long as it has started reverse TCP handler on 192.168.1.251 and running automatic check set BIOS, the reason why it is not executing is that, okay, it says not vulnerable, the target is not exploitable, set false exploit true to override check results. So it tells me that this is the right, I can actually, this particular system cannot be exploited. And why is it that the system cannot be exploited? The system cannot be exploited because there is firewall on the system and there is Microsoft that is defending the system, or the network is protecting it. So even if I create a payload, I need to encode that payload so that that payload will be able to bypass inside the system without the antivirus or the firewall to be able to detect it that I put in a payload or something exploit. Because the moment it shows me this information and it says not exploitable or not vulnerable, I have no business with that as long as I know that I have gotten the right information on this particular system. I should be able to exploit it. So some people will just pick up any exploits, sorry, any payload here and use the payload. And then you are wondering why you are not getting enough information. It is basically because you are using the wrong payload. You can be lucky and you would find a good payload, but most times the payload might not be designed specifically for that particular application. So I am showing you payloads to note that, like I told you under MSF Venom, like I showed you under MSF Venom, where is it? Okay, this is the other, this, let's say MSF Venom, let's say /L, or we can decide to go find out payload that can work with that. So let's say MSF Venom and we use payload, because our payload that we are looking for is not in the database of MSF console, we can find the payload on MSF Venom and copy it and paste it in MSF console. So let's say we want to look for payload to see if there's any other payload that can work with that Kali Linux operating system of port 80 with that particular IP address. So what I'm doing here now is to open to see the list of payloads here, to copy the original payload, anyone that will be able to bypass the firewall and the antivirus of the system. Please ask questions before we proceed, if you don't understand where we are at this moment.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. How do you know that those payload cannot work for these exploits? Those payloads that you brought out. How do you know that those payloads cannot work?
That is exactly what I did. I think I showed you. Um, see what I did. Hmm? And I want you to just pay attention to this. I said MSF Venom /L, and I put platform. Platform here tell us that they are different payload for different operating system. MSF Venom. Okay, MSF Venom /L platforms. We will need to be very slow in how we take this so that everybody would download and digest their stuff. Now, there are all kinds of platforms which we came to this place before. If I wanted to attack a Cisco network and I want to
Can't see the
bypass
screen,
an
sir.
network, this is it. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Now, the payload, this one now, if I want to attack an Android phone, it is telling me that their payload for Android. If it is AIX, their payload for AIX. If it is Apple phone, this is it. If it is Brocade, if
So
it
we
is
cannot see your
Java,
screen. We cannot see your screen, sir.
uh, can you see in this particular place? This particular platform under MSF Venom here is telling me that these are the platform that I can create a payload under. The idea is that we want to create a payload. That is the reason why we are exploiting in the first place, to be able to penetrate. So Android phone can be penetrated, Apple phone can be penetrated, Cisco network, firewall, hardware. If we want to attack the device, like we know the device as maybe a computer, we know the hardware, JavaScript, Java itself. These ones are for websites and the rest. NetBSD, Node.js, PHP, these are programming language. Python, if you want to even attack a Python, a system with Python, Solaris, this is for Windows. So if we now go to MSF Venom, let's find, sorry, MSF Venom, let me clear first. MSF Venom /L, and let's say payloads. It is because the load are much. That's why it always takes time. And please confirm if you have MSF Venom on your system. Open a terminal and type MSF Venom /h or /help. Can you confirm that before we proceed? Please confirm it before we proceed.
Yes, I think we have it. We did it so certain time ago. You asked us to
Okay,
install it. Yeah.
okay. All right. So if you see my screen here, there are multiple kinds of payload. So if I am looking for a payload, all this here are payload. So can you see that when I come to MSF Venom, there is payload, which is Linux payload, because everything MSF Venom have is payload. I'm using only the payload aspect. There you can encode, you can do all kinds of things, and the platform model. It has the one for payload. So you see that you can see that the payload here is showing Linux /metapreter/bind, that this is / TCP, or I could say Linux reverse TCP. Today I'm just showing us how to find the right payload before we start doing execution. So you must recognize that the payload is in MSF Venom. The payload is not in where is this one? Where is this? Ah, where is
The payload is an MSF Venom, but it's not an exploit, right?
it's not in MSF console.
Okay, MSF
Did I close
controls. Okay.
application?
Sir?
Yeah, I'm trying to look at what I opened earlier. Yeah. So if you look at these payloads here, all these payload here did not have Linux there. So because there's no Linux here, even if I'm trying to put on any payload, this payload would not work. And that is the reason why even when I exploit, it is easy for it to say not vulnerable, because firewall is protecting the system. But if I can create a payload, which if I do not create the payload, MSF Venom is a different application. These ones now have the payload that I can decide to use for that Linux. And if it is also Windows that I am going for, it is the same payload for Windows specifically that I can either have, or I would decide to create. If I can't find it in this place, then I would kind of create my own payload. I can design my payload by myself, which I just want us to understand the findings of the right payload. So anytime you exploit and you can see blue in any of all these things, it tells you that there is a chance that you can execute into that system. And you can put a payload that will bypass into that system without their antivirus knowing. The payload is one thing and the encoding is another one. Like, for example, you can use MSF Venom /L/encoder. Now, the work of encoder is to mask the payload so that the target system would not know